Hello, I'm Dave Fisher. Welcome to CSSE 490. The official title for the course was iPhone SDK Programming, but Apple's been changing from iPhone to saying iOS. So the class is going to change names as well to iOS SDK Programming. I'm going to talk about a lot of things today, trying to introduce you to doing a little bit of iPhone development, but decided it'd be more fun, like before talking about like the details of the class, to go ahead and do a demo. So let's go ahead and do a demo. So we're going to go ahead and open up Xcode here to make a quick little iPad app is what we're going to do. So to make a new app, typically you start with some form of a template. The goal for today is not really for you to learn, just for you to kind of like watch and kind of get a big picture of, oh, this is kind of a little bit of how this works. So there are a lot of templates. The one that we're going to start with today is we're going to say a view-based application for an iPad, and we're just going to call it Demo in Class. I'm going to call it Demo in Class 2 because I've practiced it once. Cool. So once we've got a new project, you're going to see an Xcode window that looks like this. There's a lot of information in this Xcode window. There are different classes and various other files. One of the things that we're going to do is we're going to make some modifications to the code in a few simple ways. We're also going to be modifying the interface builder files. So there are some files that are all about typing code, but with apps it's also all about using the graphical tools. And the one that you're going to use a lot, the partner in crime to Xcode, is called Interface Builder. So let's go ahead and look at Interface Builder here. So Interface Builder has a lot of different information. It's got drag and drop for adding things to this window. So let's just go ahead and do an example. Let's go ahead and drag over a label. Let's make this label say Hello World to appease the programming gods. And so actually at this point we've added an object, a UI label, to this view, and we've actually got enough that we could run this right now and it would show up. So we've used the template to do a lot of the lower level work, and then we've used Interface Builder to add a single label, and there it is. So you can see Hello World programmed with apps is very simple. You don't have to type any code. You just use the graphical tool to put that together. So I think that's kind of neat how quickly you can make Hello World. There's a lot of things that you can add to Interface Builder. Let's say that we wanted to add a button. There's a lot of UI kit elements that make it really easy. What I'm going to do with this button later is I'm going to use it to increment something. You can add things like images, so we're going to go ahead and add an image view object. Before you can add an image, you need to go find a PNG file or a JPEG file and add it to your project. So real quick, I'm just going to add a JPEG. Really, you should always use PNGs, but for the purposes of this example, it'll be okay if I use a JPEG. So what I want to do here is I want to make that image show up in this UI image view, and I want it to fit to the appropriate size of that image. And all of a sudden, I've got not only a label, but also a button and an image all running inside my app. So I can click the button, but nothing really happens. The label isn't going to change. The image isn't going to change. So let's make some of this stuff happen. So we want to connect Interface Builder to the code. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's go into the code. And so the two files we're going to modify. We're going to modify a demo in class 2 viewcontroller.h and .m file. Objective-C uses a header and then also an implementation file. So we're going to start by making some additions to the header file. The things that we're going to add to the header file is we're going to add two instance variables, sometimes called IVARs. Objective-C is an object-oriented programming language. So this is a class. This class has member fields, member variables, which in Objective-C you call IVARs. There's going to be a little bit of boilerplate code here that I'm not overly worried about. You learn in today, but eventually it will become second nature. We're going to create a property, and then we're also going to create an action for the button. So pressed button. So the important thing here is that we've got an outlet that we're going to connect to that label, an outlet that we're going to connect to that image, and then an action that we're going to connect to that button. So this is how you wire up things from Interface Builder to your code in Xcode. So I'm going to hold down the control button and I'm going to make a connection to this label. That's my label. I'm going to hold down control and I'm going to make a connection to this image and say that's my image. And then for the action you go the other direction and I say make that action call that function. So now I've made connections from Interface Builder to my Xcode project. Next I'm going to do a couple more things. I'm going to add a synthesize here. Don't worry about the synthesize just yet. We'll get to them later in the course. And then the thing we're going to start with is we're going to say that button, I want it to call this function. So let's go ahead and let's just display a message. You pressed the button. So now whenever somebody presses the button, we're going to make a log. So when I press the button, it just says you pressed the button. Pretty exciting, I know. So let's make some other connections. So you can see that the log is good for developers, but nothing's happening on the screen when I press the button, right? So let's make the button do something. Let's go ahead and let's make a counter. If you're familiar with C, some of this code should look really familiar to you. So I'm just going to say increment the counter, and then I'm going to say make the labels text be equal to the counter. If you're not familiar with Objective-C, a lot of this is going to look like gibberish at first. That's just kind of how it is. Going to be a lot of square brackets. What we're doing here is we're sending a message to an object. That object is the NSString class. We're going to say create a string with format. Then this part should probably look familiar to people. Typical C formatted print screens. Or sorry, printfs. And now when I click on the button, you can see that it actually does something on the screen that's visible. So this is what's useful for app developers. Let's go ahead and play with moving that R logo as well. So let's just go ahead and let's move that R logo down. So let's grab the center point of it. And then we'll say make that center's Y go down by 10, and then store it back. And so now every time we click increments, it moves the label or changes the label and it moves the R. So that's pretty neat. There are all kinds of things you can do with UIKit, but just to kind of show you a couple other things, you can also manually move, or you can also manually use touches. So I'm going to go ahead and cheat. I'm going to type part of the word here, then I'm going to double click on it so that I can copy paste. With Coca Touch, any view automatically implements the touches began, touches moved, and touches ended. And then the view controller will also get that message if the view doesn't do anything with it. So whenever we get a touch, we're going to do something with that touch. So we're just going to say a touch. We're given a touches set, and we're going to grab a touch out of there. And then we're going to say that the touch point is a touch location in view. And then we'll just make the R logo center point be the touch point. So now, whenever we click, the R will move to wherever we click. Increment will still work, but now we can click and it'll go there. If you click and drag, not much happens yet, but you can easily fix that by adding the same code to touch as moved. Now if I click and drag, you can see it'll move with me, which is pretty neat. They make it easy to do a lot of things. For example, you could do an animation, so instead of just showing up at the other spot, it's pretty easy to add an animation. Let's just go ahead and say begin animations. And then after you begin them, you have to commit them. And you can see that now it'll go in an animated fashion to wherever you click next. So this is the example app that I wanted to do today. I just wanted to give you a feel for making a quick app, what happens in Xcode, what happens in Interface Builder, a look at this crazy syntax with Objective-C, and just kind of to get your feet wet and seeing what some of this is about. Cool, so a lot more to do. So let's talk a little bit more about the course in general, give you a little bit of introduction to me as well, so you know where I'm coming from. So what this course is all about is, of course, iOS programming. We're going to cover the Objective-C language, the tools that you're going to use, which includes Xcode and Interface Builder, the object-oriented environment you're going to be working in, which is called Coca Touch. The two important frameworks we're going to be focusing on in the course in general. These frameworks are libraries. They have a lot of the tools you use. Are called UIKit and Foundation. We'll learn a lot about those. In the course, we're also going to talk about the design patterns that are used with app development. We're going to be talking about delegates and protocols, of course, object-oriented programming, the model view controller practice. We're also going to be learning about storing our data. All sorts of fun things. This course we're going to be using the textbook pretty extensively. The textbook we're using is Beginning iPhone 3 Development. It's a little older, but it's still the best book that's currently available. They will be releasing an iPhone 4 development, but it's not out at the time of this class. Here are the topics that are in the book. We're going to try to get through a lot of this book. So the cycle is pretty much going to be read a chapter in the book, come to class and we'll talk about it, and occasionally we'll have an exam. I think I've got that on a later slide. Some of the limitations of this book is it was published in summer 2009, which means that any of the latest stuff won't be in there, right? So of course the iPad didn't exist when this book was published, so you won't find it in there. You won't find anything about universal apps. You won't find anything about iOS 4. So we will try to cover some of these things, like some of the additional foundations that are in the new iOS 4. There's also, with any book, a bunch of things that I consider important that weren't in there. Can't believe delegates and protocols weren't in that book, so we'll cover those pretty extensively. Unit testing wasn't covered at all in the book, so we'll cover that. And we'll also add to this course a few things that I like. We'll add a little bit about GameKit and a little bit about external accessories. So, like I was saying before, we're going to be reading this book. There's a quiz that you're going to take for every chapter. The quizzes are online. Then when you come to class, we're going to learn about related topics. Usually it will be like learning what's new related to that topic. There's also going to be lab assignments. Any lab assignment you can do individually or with a partner if you'd like. Everything can be done either individually or as a partner in this class. We ask that you both turn it in though. I will say that labs are going to require a little bit of digging. So for example, we're just going to assign you a task. Like in lab 1, you're going to have to make a tic-tac-toe game. And you're going to have to dig a little bit to see what all goes into bringing this together. There's going to be 3 exams. There's also going to be a course project. The course project is just to make your own app, right? So a pretty simple idea there on the project. The plan is to have about 7 labs, each lasting approximately 1 week. And then at the end of the course, we'll focus just on the projects. Breakdown, 10% to the quizzes, and then everything else I just split evenly. So 3 exams and a final. You can see the final's not weighted any heavier than the exams. And then the project is also a big part of your grade. Standard Rose-Hulman letter grade system for A's, B's, C's, etc. And then everything that we want you to access is on the website. We actually made an improvement to this link. So the course website, everything can be found at rosehulman.edu/iOS programming. So this link will point to the course website. Everything on here, everything in this class is actually a Google Doc. So I want to get everybody that's enrolled in the class up and editing on Google Docs so you can help fix labs and things that need corrections and typos, etc. So let's introduce a little bit more about me. What's my background? What kind of things have I done that I might be able to help you learn and make your projects shine? First off, I am a big dork. I have a whole bunch of Apple stuff. Just for fun, I took a picture of my family and threw in some of our Apple products. This is my wife, Christy, our 3-month-old daughter, McKinley, me, of course. You can see here we've got my wife's MacBook Pro, my MacBook Pro, and then kind of coming across we've got my wife's Pink Nano, my wife's iPod Touch, my wife's 3G iPhone, my iPhone 4, and then my iPad. We've also got like an iPod Touch that wasn't even shown, and then of course we used an iPhone to take the picture. So we've got a 3G mounted on the fridge here taking the picture. Love these little GorillaPod stands, they're really cool. The way I took this picture I'll talk about a little bit later, but I actually used an app that I made to make taking this picture easier. As far as my schooling goes, I was actually a student at Rose-Hulman, actually an ME major. I did my PhD work out at Stanford. My PhD work was actually in biomechanics, which is crazy. But while I was at Stanford, I really got into embedded programming, and one programming topic led to another, and now I do apps. If I was going to be more exact about what my schooling looks like, it's actually been a Rose-Hulman degree, a Stanford degree, and then while I've been at Rose-Hulman, I do nothing but take classes, right? So I take a lot of computer science programming classes, so I'm kind of a permanent learner here at Rose-Hulman now. Take 1 class every quarter. It's good times. In the summer, I get some experience working as well. Anybody recognize these buildings? This is Apple Campus. This is Infinite Loop. And then my building is actually over here to the left. I work in a building called Mariani. So I've worked at Apple in the summertime. I've worked in the summer of 2008, 2009, 2010. I actually work with the accessories team. So we don't necessarily do app development, but we do C programming for embedded devices. Some of the things that the accessories team has launched, they're in charge of like the headphones, the docks, any cables that go with the docks. They also were responsible for the Nike Plus iPod Sport Kit. This was actually a project I worked on field testing for in 2008. And then, of course, they're responsible for all the accessories that go onto the iPad. So the keyboard dock, the camera kit, the various video cables. This is what the accessories group does. I also, if you're interested in embedded programming, I also teach 2 courses in the ME department, is where they're officially listed. The courses are called Mechatronics and Robotics Engineering. The idea of these courses is they bring together computer science skills, mechanical engineering skills, electrical engineering skills, and do some work with controls. I always draw the size of the circle appropriate to how much you do in that area. So you can see mechatronics is really a lot about programming, C programming, working with microcontroller peripherals. And then in robotics, we do even more programming. So I try to warn people up front that there's a lot of C programming, a lot of embedded programming. So if you want to learn about embedded programming, come take one of those courses with me. They're great. So why iOS programming? So why not work in Python? Python's a great programming language. It's great to get started. Why not work in Java? It's everywhere. Why not do Android app development? It's written in Java, which is something you know. Additional negatives about iOS programming. It requires a Mac. The Mac's a good machine. You're a wise man to have a Mac anyway, but if you only have a Windows machine, you've got to buy a Mac. There's a $99 annual developer fee. What is this Objective-C thing again? Everything's written in Objective-C. I'm guessing it's a language you don't know. And then a big one that you'll find when you start working with it is there's no garbage collector. So there are some serious negatives to wanting to do iOS programming. So to try to answer this question of iOS programming, I'll kind of make some comparisons to other projects I've done in these other languages. And so, like, for example, I take classes at Rose-Hulman. People that took the introduction course, CSSE 120, you probably made a Tetris game, is one of the things you might have made. I made a Tetris game as well. I even put this giant pumpkin piece in there for fun. It is hard to place that pumpkin piece, let me tell you. And I mean, it was a great project. I learned a lot about Python programming. That was the whole idea. But I'll say that, like, I made it, so I looked at it. And then I showed it to the professor of the course, and he looked at it. So, I mean, 2 people saw this program, like, in its history. Maybe you took the robotics version of this course, in which case you probably did a GUI there. Again, only a couple people, maybe, you know, you, your partner, 3 or 4 other people, right? Coming into CSSE 220, working with Java. Probably a lot of people made the Minesweeper program. This is my Minesweeper program that I made. Worked with a partner. We showed it to the class on presentation day, so you know, maybe 15 people saw this program. Other classes, you might have done vector graphics. Also another good one. Same number of people saw it. Other courses, the OpenGL course. I did this course. You know, 2 or 3 people saw this project that I made. Really cool stuff. Learned a lot about OpenGL. Did it all with my Mac. That's kind of fun that you can take the OpenGL course with your Mac. So why app development? The big thing in my mind is distribution, right? So immediately if you put something on the App Store, it's worldwide, just day one. Right now there are about 120 million iOS devices, with another 250,000 sold every day, like activated every day. This totals to about 200 apps that get downloaded every second. So you can see it's a big area. You can distribute your things, they'll get seen. It's also a great mobile platform. It's got a camera, it's got a GPS, all sorts of sensor capabilities, great handheld computing power. And then, of course, the big thing for most folks is the potential for profit. This is a great job skill. You could work for somebody making an app. It's also great because it levels the playing field for small companies. So let's say, you know, if you wanted to try to make a game for, say, a Wii or a PSP or a Nintendo DS, like, how much time would it take to make those games? It's extremely difficult. So it just levels the playing field. First app that I made was kind of a funny one. I had a friend who would go over to his house to watch TV every day, or every week, sorry, every Tuesday. We always do, like, draw names out of the hat to see who gets to sit where. And just for fun, I told him I'd make him an app, so I did. I called it TV Night Picker. Really all it is you add your name to the wheel, you add everybody's name, you click spin wheel, it spins the wheel, randomly selects someone, and then that person gets their seat, right? So simple app, doesn't do much. I made it for me, I made it for him. Instead of just giving it to him, I put it on the App Store. They allowed it. They said that it was a fine app. And something funny happened. Like, I knew I was going to download it. I knew he was going to download it. So there were 2 people. But then you look at how many downloads you got, and the first month, I got 200 people download this app. So not only did I download it and he downloaded it, but another 198 people downloaded it. And you can see every month I had a lot of people downloading this app. I'm sure they opened it and they thought, what is this? But it was crazy. And then for some reason in November, totally randomly, 600 people downloaded this app. So all in all, if you look at like the cumulative total, 2,000 people downloaded this app within the first 6 months. I stopped tracking it after that. I think it started to go downhill. But it's crazy that this thing that I wrote in like a couple weeks had 2,000 people look at it, right? I mean, what a great distribution network. So I was hooked, right? I was like, oh, this app development thing, this is fun. So I really like learning this. So I decided, why not go ahead and start a company? So this is me. My company is called Moback Design. Moback actually stands for Mobile Accessory. The goal is to eventually make accessories to work with iPhone apps. Because it's easier to make apps than accessories. I don't have any accessories I've made, but I do have an app. I have an app called EasyCam. EasyCam is a remote camera sharing application. I've got a website up called mobackdesign.com. And you can see that I've got information about the apps that are for sale. I've got a little news area. I'm not saying it's a great website, but it's something to lend respectability to my apps, right? So the app comes in a paid version, which is $3, and then also a free version called EasyCam Lite. What the app is all about is it makes a connection between 2 devices, and then you can control the camera from the second device. So here, if we've got an iPhone and we want to control it from an iPad, we can make a connection between them, and then the photos, whatever you see on the iPhone, will stream over. You get a live streaming preview image, and if you click capture, you can capture those images. You can also take a high-resolution photo, and it'll get saved in high-res. If you'd like to learn more, just watch one of the videos on here. So there's a tutorial which shows all the information. There's one where I hooked it to a remote control airplane, which is pretty cool. One where I do some things with robots. One where I played with some balloons. Let's go ahead and watch one of them. Let's watch. Let's grab the balloon one. They're all great. So you should watch them all. But just to pick one, let's watch the one with balloons.
Hi, I'm Clinton McMichael, and my idea for EasyCam is EasyCam Lite. Basically tie my iPhone to a bunch of balloons, float it up in the air, and take some cool area photos.
sketchy. The balloons started to go over the building. So yeah, we almost lost the thing there. It was kind of fun. Then that night we went back and we did some pictures at the church. This was a neat idea because you could like see really close to the mural what was going on. So you can see that these images are streaming down to the other device, and then whenever we want to, we just capture photos. That's cute. Looks like he's holding them. It was really the first time I've seen images this close to the mosaic, so it was really pretty neat. So this is just one of the things that one of my friends thought would be fun. So we went and we shot a little video doing it. But there's all kinds of crazy things you can do when you can remotely control the camera. So I think it's a pretty neat app. I'll say it is definitely a little niche market because you have to have two devices to actually use it. But I think it's a pretty cool app, to be honest. I guess it's mine, so I'm pretty biased, but I like it. So that's the app that I made. Let's go ahead and look at some of the behind-the-scenes numbers on it, just because that's always kind of interesting. Oh, this bump mode is kind of neat, too. We'll talk more about bump later in the quarter. So one thing I'll say is it actually was used to take this picture as well. If you look at my thumb, you can see I just clicked on the high resolution button. So I was controlling the camera using my EasyCam app. It actually was a really good way to take this picture, so you can see how it's framed and stuff like that. So it's a neat app. So it's been on the App Store for, let's see, a month and a half at this point. It went on, I guess, July 15th is when it first went up. A free version that has an iAd in it, and then there's also a paid version for $3. The iAd version is really neat. So I'll tell you what, how about everybody download this real quick and check it out. And then we'll play with it some as people get it downloaded. Oh, and if you click on the ad on there, that would be fine. So looking at some of the numbers behind the scenes, it's been up for about a month and a half. It's had over 10,000 downloads, which is awesome. I'm stoked about that, right? That's awesome. I will say that the popular apps, they're getting more than this every day, right? So it's like 6 weeks for me, but they're getting more than this every day. I had about 550 paid downloads, which, I mean, this is real money, right? It sells for $3, which means that I get $2.10. I mean, that's $1,000 sitting right there, right? Which is pretty awesome. There's analytics that run inside the app, so you can see information about like how long people used it and where they launched it from. So this is an image from Google Analytics. This, I think, is the coolest thing about this app. This app is available in 9 languages. It's available in English, French, Spanish, Italian, German, Chinese, Japanese, Dutch, and Russian. So it's available in 9 languages, and it's been used in over 100 different countries. So in 6 weeks, this app has been launched in 100 different countries, which is crazy. 30,000 launches. I mean, who would have ever guessed, growing up in a small town, that you can make something that got used in 100 different countries, right? I mean, most people never touch someone or never speak to someone in another country, and yet you're making software that people are using worldwide, which is just crazy. So the distribution is insane. Looking at where people are using this at, you can see that only 1/3 of the users are in the US, and then other users are coming from around the world. You can see that a huge piece of the pie is Japan. The next biggest is the UK, and then of course the other gets another big piece of the pie. This is actually kind of unfortunate for me because one of the ways that it makes money is through the iAds. So people clicking on iAds, you actually make $1.20 every time somebody clicks on an iAd. And right now iAds are really only going to the US. So these other people are using EasyCam Lite with no ad penalty, which, it's good for them. It's kind of neat to be able to see your numbers. You can see that this is my iAd number. So you can see that on any given day I'm making around, I don't know, $7-8. So that means that probably like 5 people click on the ad a day. You can see to where if you've got a popular app, I mean, this would add up, right? So I mean, I'm stoked about this. This is awesome. And you can see that like each day you make a couple bucks for doing nothing, for just having the app up and running, which is cool. They do eventually pay you as well. They pay you usually a month after the end of the month. So they'll pay you for July a month after July 31st. So they'll pay, I think this one came in on September the 2nd. I got paid for that. So the potential for profit is, of course, what most people are thinking about when they think about apps. You won't necessarily make a lot of money unless you just really hit the gold mine. I mean, $9.38, that's a good chunk of change. I'm happy about that. But most people in this room will eventually get good jobs, right? And that much money is great and all, but you should probably make that in like 2 days if you got a real job. And let me just say, it took me more than 2 days to write this app, right? So stick with your day job. But this is a fun hobby that you can make money at, which is great. So coming up for tomorrow, that's the end for today. What I want you to do before the next class, I want you to go ahead and register your developer account with Apple. Everything you need to do is at developer.apple.com/iPhone. I'm surprised they haven't changed that link to read iOS yet. That's kind of the direction they're going with everything else. But you need to go there. You're going to need to sign up to get your account. So you're probably going to need to register. I also want you to get on Google Docs. So Google Docs is something we're going to use in the class. It's just docs.google.com. Make sure you go to the course website and you can see all these things that are due. I also want you to read chapters 1 and 2 before Monday. So all this information is also on the website. So install the SDK, complete this form for your username for Google Docs so that I know where you're at. And then just read these 2 chapters and then take the quizzes, right? So there'll be a quiz that you should take about the chapters. And so we'll be grading the quizzes, and that's part of your grade. Good deal. I'll see folks at the next class.